All right, welcome to NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This time we are focusing on the Buffalo Bills with EJ Daniels from Cold Front Report and PFF. How's it going?
Good, Andy. Thank you again for having me on your show. I'm very honored to be here.
Absolutely. And really, it's an exciting time to talk about the Bills. A lot going on with Josh Allen. But first, before that, I wanted to get your take on the all the young quarterbacks and who are some of your top three MVP candidates. And maybe that includes Josh Allen, maybe it doesn't.
It's tough right now. Josh had that dud in the first week, man, so it's kind of tough for me to put him in there right now. But if I had to go with three off of the top, probably have to go. I have Kyler, probably Herbert is there too, and probably Josh. You know what? I'll throw Dak in there actually because I was talking on Twitter yesterday about Dak. So I'm gonna go Kyler, Herbert, and Josh. Herbert kind of went down for me a little bit yesterday because he had a dud. That was probably his worst game. He missed a lot of easy throws, man. But that's a testament to the Ravens. They were pressuring him a lot. He was an off platform, missing a lot of easy throw. He missed a screen. He missed a touchdown pass to Mike Williams down deep. You know, those are throws that he actually usually hits. And that's the one thing about Herbert, you know, he's really accurate deep. He's really accurate under pressure. You remember last year, he had the greatest season under pressure of any quarterback, any rookie quarterback that, you know, ever played. So now he comes into this year, you know, he's pretty good. He's got like an 80 PFF passing grade. He's like the sixth or seventh highest graded quarterback among all starting quarterbacks. So he's pretty good. But Kyler is really the one who has been separating himself most. He's actually the highest graded quarterback under pressure. While he's the highest graded quarterback under pressure, he has the second most big time throws, which is throws of 20 plus yards or more. And also, you see the resurgence of AJ Green. And I think that also has a lot to do, you know, with what Kyler Murray is doing. And then you look at a guy like Christian Kirk, you know, now Kyler Murray has three different weapons that he can employ. Christian Kirk is playing 89% of his snaps in the slot. So now you got Christian Kirk playing more of his natural position. You got AJ Green on the outside. I don't even need to go into DeAndre Hopkins. You see what he did yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so now on top of that, you know, Kyler is just deadly accurate deep. And that's what he's been doing. And as you see the results of what Arizona is, they're undefeated right now.
Yeah, I interviewed a few weeks back someone with the Cardinals, and he talked about how interesting or how important it was for Larry Fitzgerald to kind of take that step back, so then it could become more of Kyler Murray's team, and he really has taken that leadership role on, even more so this week with his coach being out with COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. You see how the team rallies around him. You saw it from the first week. He kind of, you know, channeled his inner Bruce Lee, and he wears that Bruce Lee thigh pad every Sunday. So he's kind of taken his leadership role, you know, on it and kind of honed it. And like you said, now it's his team, you know. And then you got a stud, like I mentioned before, of DeAndre Hopkins. And one thing that I'd like to see, I want to give a little credit to the Cardinals coaching staff. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, he gets a lot of flack for not, you know, putting Kyler in the best situations. But you look at this year, they're doing a lot of quicker stuff. They're doing a lot of RPOs, getting the ball out of his hands really quickly. And as I mentioned before, you know, Kyler is deadly accurate deep. And that's the difference. When you can hit more of those 20-yard, 30-yard plays downfield. Like I said, Kyler has the second most right now. So he's definitely doing his thing. And AJ Green has helped with that. And now you're seeing, you know, the Cardinals again are undefeated.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have to bring up one player that you haven't mentioned yet. What about Lamar?
I like Lamar. You know, I was not the biggest fan of Lamar. I'm just going to be honest, but I mean, he's definitely changed my mind, you know, based on what he's been doing, you know, these past 2 weeks. You look at what he did against the Indianapolis Colts, leading that touchdown drive to put the game into overtime and then ultimately win it in overtime. But what I love and what separated him now is he is finally getting it done from the pocket. He has a higher average depth of target. He's pushing it. He has the highest, actually, average depth of target in the league, pushing it 10 yards down the field per throw. He's also deadly accurate on play action. I believe he's the second highest graded quarterback per PFF on play action passes. And you're just seeing him more comfortable in the pocket. His feet aren't erratic. He's not bailing on clean pockets. He's sitting there. He's hanging in there, and he's making good throws. So now we're seeing the maturation of it. You remember last year, he had the lowest percent of passes completed outside the numbers. Now he's hitting. The offense looks a little bit more how it did his rookie year with a lot of runs, and then you got Mark Andrews who's finally healthy, taking advantage of those middle parts of the field, being Lamar's big target.
Looking at the MVP discussion, does it matter from what you've seen of like the surrounding, talent? With all of the injuries, it almost seems like Lamar's had to do more. Does that even play effect in, is in the debate at all, or?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, we can't sit here and act like a situation doesn't matter. If I had to pick an actual front runner right now to win it, and I couldn't argue with anybody, it's probably Brady. But subsequently and conversely, to put it all together, he probably has the best situation out of anybody in the NFL with three All Pro receivers, and a top 5 O line. So
Absolutely.
going back to Lamar, he lost all his running backs, literally lost every single one of his running backs, but kind of with the offense that they run, you can pretty much put anybody back there and they can, get solid run production. With Lamar, first and foremost, using his legs, he's like a halfback quarterback in himself. And then the O-line is always solid when it comes to run blocking. And so, you still got Hollywood Brown, you got Sammy Watkins making plays. And as I previously mentioned, Mark Andrews, is now healthy and making plays. I think the biggest thing for the Ravens as a whole was the fact that they lost so many players on defense. They lost key players. They lost Marcus Peters. And so that was kind of what was hampering them at the beginning of the year. But now you see Lamar, calming down, making plays, utilizing Hollywood deep. So now Hollywood doesn't have to be, the guy. He has another guy in Sammy Watkins. And they just got Rashad Bateman back yesterday, who, is getting his groove back too. So Lamar's doing good, but, I still want to see more, but I will say that he does look really good right now.
So I on Twitter, I see a lot of debate between Lamar and Josh Allen. So let's go ahead and just settle that debate right now. Would you go ahead pick Josh Allen over Lamar then?
I am most certainly picking Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson, and here's why. Josh Allen has made leaps and bounds, in
No
terms of
intended
his
too, by the way.
no pun intended. Right. The meme around the world, but he's made leaps and bounds in his deep ball accuracy. I mean, he has 9 throws of 30 plus yards or more. Now, 2 years ago, he was literally the worst passer according to completion percentage, the worst in the league of any starting quarterback. To go from that to what he is now, it's literally day and night. And why I'm picking him over Lamar is because, again, Lamar is just now starting to, be comfortable in the pocket. Having solid feet, having good mechanics. Josh had to have time to get developed too, but you're seeing it quicker with Josh. And I think at this moment in time, I think Josh has him just a little bit. And then Josh's supporting cast is better also. And Josh has also shown that he can make a lot of something out of nothing. Not to say Lamar can't do it too, because we obviously know what Lamar does. We know what's going on, but it's that passing on the run. It's that accurate passing on the run. You saw that one throw to Dawson Knox. He scrambled right, put it right on the sideline for Dawson Knox to catch 30 plus yards on the field. That's the stuff that I've seen from Josh consistently. I can't say I have consistently seen that from Lamar, and I think that's the difference in the two.
Is that attributed to coaching? I did hear, something about how I'm not sure which coach pull him aside and said, you need to stop doing this and do more of this, or
Coaching in terms of, are you talking about Josh or Lamar?
Josh? Yeah.
Josh is most certainly coaching, no question about it. I mean, Bills probably have a top 3 coaching staff in the league in terms of, Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier, Brian Dable, and then you had Jordan Palmer working with Josh on the specific aspects of quarterbacking also. So I think coaching has definitely, played a part in his maturation. But the one thing I will say about Josh, and my one knock on him, is that he constantly takes bad sacks. And that's what happens when you have a gunslinger at quarterback. You have a guy that can run around. He takes bad sacks and knocks him out of field goal range, knocks him out of scoring position. He did it in a playoff game against the Colts. He did it last Sunday against the Chiefs. They could have got a field goal, but he took that bad sack and knocked him out of field goal range. So he has got to stop doing that. And he does that a little bit too too much for me, which doesn't put him in that elite tier with the Bradys, the Russell Wilsons, the Aaron Rodgers, those guys. But I mean, he's right there. But to answer your question specifically, coaching definitely matters. I mean, even if you go back like a year ago, you remember, Brian Dable was on him very hard, very tough on him at first to make sure he, played the game a smart way. So I would definitely say that coaching is a big factor in his maturation.
And talking about coaching, what has McDermott and Dable kind of meant to the whole roster?
Oh, in terms of Sean McDermott, he's a solid leader. Like, what you're going to get from him, every day. He comes from that Andy Reid tree, I believe. So any guys off that tree, they're always, good. And then look what he's did throughout the years. Buffalo was, terrible before he got there, but he stuck with it. They made the playoffs in his second year, I believe it was, with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. That was when the Bengals, got that win and they put them in the playoffs. But and then every year they've gotten better. Every year there's people looking at Buffalo staff to pick and cherry pick off coaching staffs and coordinators and all that stuff. Brian Dable's probably going to be gone after this year. Leslie Frazier's probably going to be gone, after this year. So there's a lot of, things that Sean McDermott has done to bring people in to help him with certain things. And then you got him and Leslie Frazier that are constantly putting together great game plans. You see the game plan that they did against Lamar the second time. You see the game plan he did the first time against Lamar. You see the game plan against Mahomes just very recently. That's all coaching. That's a testament to the coaching. They out-coach Andy Reid. And time again, I've seen Sean McDermott constantly adjust. When he's lost, he's adjusted the second time around to get and put his defense in favorable positions. And you got to give him a nod to his coaching.
And that's kind of been a long time coming in for the Bills, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, man. They've been I'm not gonna say a loser, but they've been down in the dumps for a while, man, and they've been starving for a winning team. I tell Bills Mafia all the time, and I will say it and I'll continue to say I hate and love the Bills Mafia because number one, they love their team and they are going to support their team no matter what, whether it's a -2 blizzard outside or it's 95 degrees outside. The Bills Mafia, is going to be there. And now that they've got a winner, now that they have a legitimate Super Bowl contender, is definitely a great time in Western New York right now.
And they've really turned over that roster. The front office has really done a great job as well in the last few years.
Oh man, Brandon Beane is just been a wizard with the cap situation, number one, and then like you said, bringing in key free agents. This last offseason there was a big debate as to whether with Brandon Beane and the regime sign back Darrell Williams, the right tackle who had a career year last year, or sign Matt Milano, who is currently PFF's highest graded linebacker. And it was just a constant, debate of who should sign. And they ended up signing both to very, team friendly deals. And that goes back to the coaching and the front office, creating an environment that's healthy, a winning environment, an environment of, competition that players want to play for. It's that homegrown type feel to it. Obviously Buffalo isn't big, but like I said, the fans, they love their team, and they're going to support their team. And it's that small, that kind of small school, small town, atmosphere that gets people, and they've done it. So signing Williams, signing Milano, bringing in guys like Stefon Diggs, pulling off that trade, pulling off the signing of Emmanuel Sanders, signing Cole Beasley, all these great guys that, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have brought in here to change this culture and make them into a Super Bowl contender.
And what does the greatness of Stefon Diggs really also mean to Josh Allen? Because we see that a lot, the question of, is it Stefon Diggs or is it Josh Allen or is it both?
It's a symbiotic relationship. It's mutually beneficial for both. I mean, Stefon Diggs was coming off of having 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons before he got to Buffalo, and he happened to catch Josh Allen in a spot where Josh was ascending. And so you kind of had both of them meet together, and you saw what the magic that they had last year. Now, Stefon isn't, putting up the gaudy numbers that he put up last year, and that's only because defenses are now adjusting. They're not going to let him, just go crazy every single game. And he talked about that in one of his press conferences. I believe it was last week. He was saying my time will come. Like I will get, my numbers and my catches and stuff when it's time. And that's a great attitude to have because Buffalo has, so much talent now. And it's allowed a guy like Dawson Knox to blossom. It's allowed a guy like Emmanuel Sanders to, keep doing what he's doing. Cole Beasley hasn't really, been that involved in the offense though so far, but he will be, and it's allowed, Buffalo to employ, a solid running game to give him another dimension, another way, to attack teams. So Stefon Diggs is, performance, his presence has just literally opened it up for everybody else on that team, and it's opening up for this offense, especially with the way that Brian Daboll likes to employ like a spread system, and you need that one guy that you can go to that's going to get you that first down and get you that contested catch when you have that situation arise.
Yeah, so you look at the wide receiver, that's definitely a strength of the team. One question mark that, going into the fantasy football drafts, I just completely stayed away from the Buffalo backfield because I just didn't know what to make of it. And it's kind of gone back and forth. So what are the roles of Moss and Singletary, and who is kind of, going forward, who is going to be the go-to one there?
I think you still got to stick with Zach Moss. He's been the most consistent back. I will say he's been the back that has got the most opportunity. Devin Singletary is solid. He probably could start, probably for 30 other teams. But I mean, if I was picking the back, I can't sit here and say that Zach Moss hasn't, played well. Like I said, he's gotten a lot of opportunities against Miami. He had 2 touchdowns, especially coming off of the loss of his aunt. He came in that game and after fumbling in that game too, he came back and had 2 touchdowns. He was definitely solid in the Chiefs game where he caught a couple check downs, and that was great to see because Josh and Lamar are the lowest quarterbacks in terms of throwing checkdowns since they've entered the league. And Zach Moss has, give him that running back that can catch out of the backfield consistently, and that's reliable because Devin Singletary has had some drops, in the past. And you remember that Chiefs game last year, he dropped the ball and they took him out the game. You didn't see him again. But I mean, Zach Moss, he's definitely a solid runner. He's pretty. Moss and Singletary are pretty much the same type of back, force missed tackles type guys. But I mean, I think Moss has played a little bit better. And then going forward to answer that question, I would definitely go with Zach Moss because he's better when it comes to pass protection. He was the highest graded rookie running back when it came to pass protection last year from PFF. So with all that said, I would definitely go with Zach Moss moving forward.
And so he wasn't he a healthy scratch in one of the first games?
Week one, he was a healthy scratch. Yep. And I think it was because he had a death in the family, I believe.
Okay.
I think that's why. Yeah. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was the reason why.
So yeah, he definitely has a talent, and with the wide receiver group, that can definitely open things up, vice versa.
Yeah, the wide receivers, man, it's one of the better units in the league. As I mentioned before, you got Stefon Diggs, who is a top 5 receiver in this league. He's been good for a long time, but he's now in an offense that has allowed him to take advantage of the opportunities, that he was not getting in Minnesota due to the fact, that they're primarily an outside zone heavy run team, and Mike Zimmer is one of those dinosaur type coaches who likes to employ running the football as their primary strategy of winning. So he didn't really get a lot of opportunities, and he was labeled as a diva. But you see, he comes to Buffalo, and now he's matured. He's just coming off an all-pro type season, and then thus now you have a guy like Emmanuel Sanders who's come in, who's also a veteran leader, who's also a guy that can create separation. Could create separation down the field, most importantly, and that could create separation on third down. I think that was the biggest difference between him and John Brown. John Brown is a straight line fast guy. Emmanuel Sanders is a route technician. And the wide receiver adage is smooth is fast. And that is exactly what Emmanuel Sanders is. Another guy that Josh has that can create separation. And then you got, Gabe Davis, who hasn't really come on this year yet, but had 5 deep touchdowns of 20+ yards last year and can do some things down the field. But, he's coming along. He's only a second-year player, so he's definitely going to show some things. And then you got Cole Beasley, who I mentioned before, hasn't also really got it going yet, but will. But you mentioned Dawson Knox, who's come along, and he's really done his thing.
So with Dawson Knox, I mean, we even see living here in Packerland, I hear a lot about like Robert Tonyan, and he had a great year last year, and so you kind of and now has not had a very good year. Sometimes you just you wonder if it's the quarterback that makes the player. Like, is Dawson Knox really that good, or is Josh Allen just kind of, making him that much better?
So I was really wanting. So I'm a tie your Robert Tonyan point in with the Dawson Knox point. So
Yeah.
Robert Tonyan I remember I was listening because I listened to the PFF podcast, and they were actually talking about Robert Tonyan, and like he had 10 touchdowns last year, I believe. And because of that, they were examining like how was he getting his touchdowns, and I believe they were saying like he ran like two routes. I believe it was like a deep crosser and like another route, but he will only run two routes. And those routes would be wide open every time due to the fact of everyone else that the Packers had on their offense, and therefore, he's always getting one-on-one matchups. He's always getting the favorable matchups, or he's just wide open. So to go to Dawson Knox, it's a little bit different in his case because if you remember, Dawson Knox was notoriously known for being a drop guy. Like he would drop the ball a lot. First year, he had 9 drops on 30 catches, and that's not a good ratio at all. Cut that down last year to 4. And then now this year, he has only 1 drop, and he leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns. For Dawson, it was more of just maturing in the offseason. He got a hand-eye coordination coach that he got out of California that he brought with him to Buffalo, that he worked on his game every day. Like I said, I have been one of the biggest critics of Dawson Knox because there's no excuse for dropping easy passes, and that was his biggest thing. He would catch the tough ones, but drop the easy ones that will go for first downs. But this year, he has definitely come on. So I just think, it's that thing of the younger players with Josh Allen too, with those younger players and those more raw players, you got to be more patient with them. And I've learned that lesson now. Even look at a guy like Logan Thomas, who switched his position from quarterback to tight end, and it didn't come together, the first year for him. But you look at the second year last year, and then his third year, even though he's hurt, he's still one of the better tight ends in the league. So it just shows us that, we have to be more patient with these players that are very raw. Because another point on Dawson Knox, when he came into Ole Miss, number 1, he was playing with DK Metcalf and AJ Brown. And number 3, he was recruited as a quarterback. So he came from high school, and in high school, he was a quarterback. So, I mean, this is like the first time he's getting meaningful snaps at tight end. So, like I said, we just got to be patient with the more raw players.
Yeah, I think I did see a stat that he didn't catch a single touchdown at Ole Miss.
Yeah, like I said, you're playing with 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers in the future, so I mean, it would only make sense. And then you have Elijah Moore also, who was there too. So I mean, those are 3 first and second round draft picks that he's playing with. So right. It's tough.
Well, speaking of another kind of strength of the team that's really helped the Bills, obviously defensively, they've got Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde. Talk about some of those players and just what they've meant to the defense.
Yeah, so the Bills currently have the highest scoring offense in the league and the lowest scoring defense. They have their number 1 in both categories right now, and a big reason for their defensive play this year is, number 1, they have many guys who are either breaking out or having career years. So, for example, Taron Johnson, he just got paid last week. He got a $24 million contract. He currently has the most coverage snaps in the slot, with the most targets in the slot, and has not given up a touchdown this year. And he has the highest coverage grade of any slot players right now too. So he's breaking out, having a great year. Micah Hyde, he's breaking out, and he's an elite safety right now. He went into last game as PFF's second highest graded safety, I believe, or third highest graded safety. And now he also leads the NFL. At that point, he had led the NFL in picks too. So he's not only playing well, but he's also turning the ball over too. So he's touching elite status right now. And then you got a guy like Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver was the 6th worst run defender among interior linemen last year. Now he's 16th. So that's the difference, and you see the difference in their running game. You see the difference in their run defense, You see how, well it is and how much better it looks, because that was the strategy going in to playing Buffalo last year, that you run the ball on them, and that's the way you beat them. And then on top of that, let me not forget to mention Matt Milano, who I mentioned at the top of the show, is PFF's, highest graded linebacker. So like I said, there are many guys on this defense who are either breaking out or having career years up until this point. And then you have Rousseau down here. You got Gregory Rousseau, who is adding another dimension to pass rushing, to coverage, and then the Buffalo and going back to the coaching staff are putting him in positions where they can use his frame, use his length to disrupt throws. I don't know if you saw the play, but last week he picked off an RPO, and if you know, Kansas City in the last 2 years have ran the most RPOs in the NFL. Why would you try to throw an RPO against a guy who has almost a 70-inch wingspan? And they did that, and what happened? He picked it off, and you see his impact week after week. And then you have AJ Epinesa up here too, who's also been, a terror pass rushing too. And then you still got Jerry Hughes, Tre'Davious White, who's an all-pro corner, who hasn't been having the greatest year. He currently is giving up the most receptions, yards, and he has the most penalties on the team right now, which is, unfortunate, but he'll get it together. But, like I said, there's a bunch of guys on this defense who is either breaking out or having career years up until this point, and you see it culminating into them having the number one defense in the league.
And I was going to ask, just kind of looking at the schedule. I mean, is part of that of just their schedule? I mean, they have faced the Chiefs, and that was a huge win. I mean, is that the product of like who they have faced, or I mean, they've Miami, Washington, Houston. Tonight it'll be interesting to see how well they do against Derrick Henry. Is that kind of part of the schedule?
I mean, that's the question right now. I mean, that's the question that everybody in Buffalo doesn't want to hear. They don't want to hear anyone talk about that question about, is it the competition that's faced? I kind of had this conversation yesterday when they were asking about who was the best team. Was it Arizona or was it Buffalo? Mm-hmm. All I said that it was a debate. That was the answer to the question. It was a debate. You can objectively say that Arizona has played better competition, but Buffalo has definitely been more impressive in the wins that they have gotten against, Houston, blanked. And then you got Miami, blanked. And then you got Washington. I believe they beat them by 20-plus points or something like that. And then you had Kansas City, destroy Kansas City also. And then you had the one ugly loss to the Steelers, when people were, on the Bills' back and, pushing them as the Super Bowl contender. And they were kind of feeling themselves. And they got punched in the mouth by the Steelers. But to answer your question specifically, I'm still, like I said, I'm still on the fence about, is it the competition or not? Listen, I can't sneeze at the number one defense and the number one offense, in the league. And they've done what they're supposed to do. They've played who's on their schedule, and they've dominated on all those 4 games that they've won, except for one, So we'll see. Like you said, this stretch coming up, they have the Titans, and I believe they have like the Jets or something like that. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I know they got some tough opponents. They have to play the NFC South. So they definitely have the Bucks. They got Titans, Saints for whatever that's worth, Carolina, right. And then they have week 13. They have the Chargers. The Chargers defense is trash, but I'm not sneezing at Herbert in that offense, man. They ran up against a good team yesterday. And it was a nice matchup. It was just a bad matchup for the Chargers yesterday. I mean, the worst run defense against the team that's probably rushed the best in the past 2 or 3 years since Lamar's been there. So the Bills have a tough schedule coming up, and we will be able to answer that question more definitively going forward. If this was a super diehard Bills fan, they'd probably say that was a silly question that you just asked. But I have to be objective, and I have to say, hey, their strength of opponents definitely matters. And as we go into this stretch, we will see more clearly what the Bills are made of.
Well, and it really, I mean, it's if you've done it before, the Chiefs, they've got the Super Bowl win. They've been, into multiple Super Bowls. They're struggling, but they get the benefit of the doubt because they've done it when it matters. Right. Mahomes has done it when it matters, and I see this, you see the same questions about the Ravens, finally last year, Lamar won a playoff game. So that, made a difference, but until you do it when it matters, the questions are valid.
Yeah. Buffalo, like I said, I go back to the strength of their opponents, man. You got to do it. Like you say, you got to do it when it matters, but like I said, they've done it up until this point. They're 4-1. You can't sneeze at that. And they have a great win against Kansas City. Like you said, I don't care, what Kansas City's record is. Eventually they will get it together. They even looked bad yesterday, even though they still got a win. They didn't look particularly great in that game either. But, Buffalo, like I said, is reaching a stretch where they play some very tough teams. That Tampa Bay game, that will be the game where you're like, if they win that game, there's there's probably no more questions that you have about Buffalo. Because I mean, if you think about it, Tampa Bay, besides Arizona, they probably are one of the best teams, in the league. I mean, you can make a case that they are. Maybe the Rams too.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay is definitely beatable. I mean,
Mm.
with the Rams, all these teams have a little bit of a flaw, and it seems like the Bills right now so far, they when you look at them, they have the least flaws of the bunch. I mean, or that or the Cardinals, they're there too. So
Yeah, they definitely, there aren't many weaknesses, on this team. And then on top of that, the Bills always have one of the best special teams units in the league. They probably have, a top gunner, two of the top gunners in Tywan Jones, one of the running backs. He's a top gunner. Then Saran Neal, who's also always a terror. He forced a fumble in that Chiefs game, so they always have a tough special teams unit that can, give them field position, get to turnover, get a touchdown whenever they need it. So they got to get the kick return situation together. But the special teams unit too is a definitely a unit. So I will agree with you there. They definitely have the least amount of holes, but those holes are definitely none of their holes. I don't think they have any glaring holes where I should be worried. They yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say, yeah, even Tyler Bass has been solid. I know I have him on my
Yeah.
fantasy teams, and that's helpful with the special teams, especially when it comes to playoffs. And it'll be interesting to see if they do get that home playoff game when it matters in the snow and all that, and that could be an advantage. We'll see.
If they get home field advantage, it's definitely a game changer because let's just hypothetically say Kansas City got to come to Buffalo in a winter. I go Buffalo on that. Kansas City ain't been looking great, or even a team like the Chargers. If the Chargers got to come from the West Coast and come and play in the snow, I don't like that matchup for the Chargers. And then on top of that, the Chargers defense, like there is really no clear-cut team in the AFC who has a stranglehold. You can say the Ravens, but the Ravens still, like, if you look at who their wins were against, this Colts, Chiefs, Chargers, Detroit, like that's like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the Chargers and Chiefs, but the Chiefs are struggling, but the Chargers are really the only team that I'm like, yeah, that's a legit team. But all the other three I name, it's just like so
and they didn't blow them out either. So
yeah. So I mean, it's up for grabs right now. But Buffalo, it's just strictly AFC. They look the best right now. There is no question that they are the front runner in the AFC. Obviously, I don't think anyone's worried about them winning their division with Jets, Patriots, and the 1-5 Miami Dolphins in that
right.
division. So I don't think we're worried about there. So, but yeah, Buffalo. I don't see it. I think the only thing that's going to stop this team, if there is a way to beat Buffalo, I will say this. If there is a way to beat Buffalo, you have to destroy them up front on the interior, in the interior line, because that is probably the weakest spot on their O-line is the interior. You're going to have to get pressure on Allen. You're going to have to force Allen into some bad throws. You're going to have to pressure him up front. But see, goes back to the greatness point of, he can create a lot of magic off script. So, I mean, it's going to be tough.
Is that what the Steelers did in the first game?
Yes, Cam Hayward had a game that game. Yes, they did. They just killed them up front. They couldn't run block because actually Buffalo is probably one of the worst run blocking and pass blocking teams, in the league. But when Josh Allen has 9 completions of 30 plus yards or more, which are going for touchdowns, and then they can add in this running component with Josh, with both those running backs, and you're getting almost, 25, 10 to 15 yards per play. I mean, it really kind of don't matter, in that aspect. But, if there is a way that you are going to beat them, that's the way that you're going to beat them. You're going to have to beat them up front. So,
well, even having this conversation obviously means that they are one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl. And what do you see? Do you see them getting the Super Bowl, kind of breaking through?
Oh yeah, I can definitely see them, winning the Super Bowl. I still want to see what's going to go on with Kansas City. I'm sorry. I know that they're not playing well. I know they don't look great, but I still want to see what's going on with them. But right now, as we stand at the end of week 6, I believe, I think Buffalo is the favorite to win the AFC. I mean, if they play the Ravens right now, I pick Buffalo. If they play the Chargers right now, I still pick Buffalo. I don't
Mhm.
see another team in the AFC really that can. I mean, no one from the South, so I don't see any other team, that's really holding a candle in the AFC to Buffalo.
And you're from that area. So
Yes.
what would a Super Bowl mean to Buffalo in that area?
Super Bowl will mean everything to that area. I'm specifically from Rochester, New York, so that's an hour away from Buffalo. But for the city of Buffalo, it would mean everything. There are people who take this seriously, and I don't mean like I just root for the team on Sunday. It's a Bills Mafia is a way of life. It is not a Monday. It is not just a Sunday, Thursday, Monday thing. It is a everyday occurrence. Children are born into it. There's food around it. There's a culture around it. It is life in Buffalo and Rochester. And what it would mean for the city. People will cry if the Bills win the Super Bowl this year. They will never forget this. There will be monuments and statues built somewhere in Western New York and the new stadium that they're thinking about building of Josh Allen somewhere if they win the Super Bowl. I am not a Super Bills fan, but even if I was, I probably would cry if Buffalo win a Super Bowl. Just going back to the 90s, making it 4 straight times, losing, dealing with that heartache for so many years, dealing with the heartache of being, at the bottom of the, AFC East first and foremost, and then the AFC period. Just all of that culminating into this moment where Buffalo is unquestionably the best team in the AFC, but one of the best teams in the NFL. It would mean everything to the Western New York area to have the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl.
Well, I'm actually a Cubs fan, so I
Mm-hmm.
definitely got emotional, and it was so weird. I mean, in 2016, I could still watch that and get emotional just because growing up, you just kind of expected a last place finish. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and growing up, and I remember all those Bills Super Bowls, and I didn't really have a connection with them, but I always wanted them to win. With what
Mm-hmm.
Jim Kelly meant, Thurman Thomas, and then what happened to him in the Super Bowl, and that was unfortunate, and so many good players there. And my question is, have you been to a Bills game?
I have been to a Bills game. I think I was in eighth. No, I was in. It was actually 3 years ago. It was a Thursday night game. Actually, it was when Fitzpatrick was still the quarterback. I believe they played the Jets. They lost, but it was when I believe it was when Fitzpatrick was the quarterback of the Jets. Excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
And they had Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, and I
Oh
went to a
yeah.
game there. I've actually been to the stadium twice. Actually,
Did they make you do the table thing?
now that table thing, honestly, is fairly new. It's a fairly new thing. It's not a thing that's been around for years. It's been like a phenomenon within like the past 4 or 5 years, I believe. I don't want nobody from the Bills Mafia seeing this and crushing me over it, but I believe it's a fairly new thing within like the past 4 or 5 years with the tables and the burning thing. But honestly, you have not tailgated until you've tailgated with the Mafia, and that's a fact. So I mean, Bills Mafia, I have said, is probably one of the best top 3 or 4 fan bases in the NFL, maybe the best fan base in the NFL. If you love tailgating, you gotta tailgate with the Mafia.
Yeah. What makes it so good? Like, I mean, other than just
It's
craziness.
really the love though. Like, it's really the camaraderie. Like you see me, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter or watch it. You see me going back and forth with the fans a lot. But if you actually meet some of these people in person, they're some of the nicest, kindest, most genuine people that you have ever met. And when it comes to the team, they just love their team, and that's really what it is. It's just all about the team. And as I mentioned, when you asked me what it would mean to the city, they treat Bills Mafia as an actual family. They do stuff for each other. They look out for each other in times of need. So when you see them on Sunday, it's like, this is what we here for. This is our common connection. So now you in your common, it's kind of like when you go to church, and you see everybody of like-mindedness in the same area. We all here for that same common goal. It's the same thing with the Mafia. I know I'm putting a lot on it because I'm from Western New York, but I'm just trying to give others who will watch this, what it's like. Like I said, I'm not a super big, huge Bills fan and a part of Mafia every Sunday, but I have experienced being around the Mafia, partying with the Mafia, tailgating with the Mafia, and it is definitely an experience that I feel every football fan should experience at some point in their football journey.
Absolutely. So They are one of the favorites for the Super Bowl. What are some needs going into the draft next year? I mean, they'll probably have a pretty, you know, higher, or in the 20s or
Mm-hmm.
30s.
Yeah.
What are some of their needs that you see in the roster right now for the draft?
So as I mentioned, one of the biggest holes is the interior O line. They just signed their right tackle back, and they just signed their left tackle the year before, so they're pretty set at the tackle spots. Um, Mitch Morris is the center, but he's getting up there in age. He's suffered a lot of concussions, and this is a player that you are very familiar with that I love, Tyler Linderbaum, center from Iowa.
Mhm.
He is the type of McDermott guy. If you know anything about Sean McDermott, his background, he loves wrestlers. What is Tyler Linderbaum? A wrestler.
Mhm.
And then the guy before on Iowa's team, Tristan Wirfs, if I believe, was Tyler Linderbaum's roommate, I believe. And
Okay.
they,
Yeah.
yes, and I
Yep.
believe that they spent a lot of time together. And Tyler and Tristan Wirfs spent a lot of time on one of the PFF podcasts talking about how Tyler Linderbaum has gotten better throughout his whole football journey, and I think he would be a perfect addition to the Bills and on that interior to solidify and be that type of rock that Josh needs to be at center.
Well, plenty of Iowa connections there too with Micah Hyde and
Yep.
AJ Epinesa.
Mm-hmm.
So and the only question is, will he be around at that time? He's
It's tough to say because you don't really see centers go that high. I think Tyler Biadasz from Wisconsin was the consensus best center in this draft, and he went or Creed Humphrey, I believe. I'm sorry, it was either Creed Humphrey or Tyler Biadasz, one of the two. But I believe
Mhm.
both of them went second, third round, I believe, or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were later round picks. Is my point. So
Yeah.
there is a good chance that Tyler Linderbaum could be there for the Bills at I'll say that they'll be picking in the 30s, 30, 31, 32, maybe somewhere around there. Late 20s, like you said, they'll be
Yeah.
somewhere around there. And there's a good chance that, he could be there. And then another position that they need is wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is 34. He mentioned in one of his press conferences that if they win a Super Bowl, he was going to go on the beach somewhere. So then I mentioned that Gabe Davis isn't kind of breaking out the way that they hope that they would. So I mean, they need to have another receiver. And when you have a pass heavy offense like Bills pass 60% of the time, I'm looking at a guy like Justin Ross from Clemson. He
Mhm.
has some injury issues. He had I believe last offseason, he had a spinal cord procedure, and he was out all of last college football season. The Clemson Tigers aren't having the best season, I believe, this year, and so I mean, he could slip, through some of the cracks. I mean, he is one of the before he got hurt, him and T Higgins were two top wide receiver prospects. So if the Bills can luck up, get close enough to get Justin Ross, I would hope that would be the move, or a guy like Treylon Burks from Arkansas, I believe, or Drake London from
Okay.
USC. Those are some guys that I'd be targeting if I was the Bills.
And how long is Diggs signed for? Is he
Oh man, I literally was just looking at it. I think he has 3 more years on his deal. But here's the
okay?
thing: Diggs probably has the best contract in the NFL among wide receivers. He's making only $6 million this year. A guy like
Wow.
DeAndre Hopkins is making 22. Vontae Adams is making 17.
Wow.
But Diggs' salary doesn't kick in. His 17 million doesn't kick in until next year.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can't sit here and say that Stefon Diggs doesn't deserve to be paid like DeAndre Hopkins or Amari Cooper, somebody like that who also has just gotten paid, or Odell Beckham, somewhere in that $20 million a year range. But, with the Bills winning in their cap space, they just signed Josh Allen to that fat, massive quarterback contract. Josh is the second highest paid player in the league right now. So I don't know how that's going to work. Buffalo currently only has $4 million in cap space. So
Mhm.
I mean, he will be begging for an extension at some point because he is that
Absolutely.
good. He's outplayed his contract. You're gonna have to compensate him in some way. You're gonna have to prorate somebody's contract or cut someone, but Stefon Diggs is gonna need to be compensated in the not too distant future. Like I said, next year, next football season, his cap number is gonna be 17 mil. So I mean, that's fine. But I mean, when you got a guy at the top of the list, and I have similar production in that guy, why am I not being paid like him? And that is a very fair question. So that's something to look at going forward too.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great. I could seriously probably talk all night about this stuff, and it helps me learn. And I really there's a lot of excitement around the Bills this year.
Yes, absolutely, man. And then one guy that I want to mention, because I don't want
Yeah.
anybody from Bills Mafia again trying to kill me saying I'm a hater. Tremaine Edmonds. He definitely has played really well this year. I just want to give him a special shout out because for the better part of his career, he has not been a good tackler. He's been awful in coverage, but this year he has made plays in coverage. The week before the Chiefs game, he was the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and then the following game against the Chiefs, had a great play in coverage on cover two, getting deep in his depth, and he stopped a pretty good throw from Mahomes. So I just want to shout out Tremaine Edmonds for anybody in the Bills Mafia who sees this and says I'm a hater. Tremaine Edmonds has also played well on that defense.
Well, and that could be a key. With Josh Allen, he's going to be great, but that defense, and in the playoffs, the defense matters, especially when you have
Yes.
the quarterbacks that are going to be in the playoffs. It really matters.
Yeah, you're gonna have to limit those deep throws, and you're gonna have to have a guy that's gonna touch Kelsey. I mean, you looked at what the Bills did against Kelsey in the last game. They had Saran Neal, jamming him at the line, making it very uncomfortable for him. They're gonna have to do that again. You can definitely expect the Chiefs to have a different game plan, but like you said, that those defenses become way more important, and they take away your strengths as you move further into the playoffs. So Buffalo has one of the better coaching staffs. They'll be employing different strategies. I know that defense is going to look different once the playoff time comes, but Buffalo has a lot of horses on defense to get it done and to beat these better teams. And it's going to be an exciting race, man. It's going to be exciting, And then we got a 17th game this year too, so it's going to be exciting to see how this all shapes up and how this all shakes out.
Absolutely. Well, so thanks again for joining me, EJ. And so they can find you at Cold Front Report.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter. That is where I'm most active. That is where I'm most vocal. Find me on Twitter at edaniel77. I interact with everybody. I also have some work up on the coldfrontreport.com. Go check that out also. And then I'm really just a data analyst, data cruncher for PFF. So I don't really have any work there. I'm one of the grunt guys. But when you work for PFF, you have to be pretty well versed on all the teams. So, but Twitter is the place where you can find me and interact with me. So at edaniel77 on Twitter.
Awesome. Yes, definitely everyone follow him. And thanks again. This has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Buffalo Bills. Thanks again.